Hello.
Um, Hi. Good to see you. Good to see you. Welcome to the stream. Hopefully, hopefully I'm loud enough for one, but also hopefully, um,
You guys are having a good day. Let's see, is this? Yep, it's going through the right audio channels. Everything looks like it's going fine.
um, not really much of a surprise. Hopefully I'm able to work on a project that I've been kind of putting aside for a while, and I would like to get done because he has just been sitting in my basement for almost a year now. Moment. So, what could I be talking about? I've had many a project that's just kind of lingered and been left there to stew with nothing to show for it. And they've just been sitting there taking up space. Well, I don't want this one to do that anymore. So, I present to you my Chaos Nurgle inspired Knight Stellan. I have many of the pieces done already. And, well, at least not done, but at least started up for the paint job, right? And so hopefully I'll be able to do a decent job painting the lad and getting these pieces put together. And I can have a really neat looking paint job on. Now, I will say something I did not realize when I first put this guy together. First of all, he's magnetized. I can take this off. And this is a little bit upsetting because I wasn't looking at the armor pieces very clearly when I first started assembling him. Is that his leg pieces, these wonderful, horrible looking things, have a built-in piece. And that built-in piece is supposed to go right here. And unfortunately, I'm pretty sure I glued this all in place, so it's not going anywhere. And so my plan, I guess, is to just kind of glue this on top. Maybe? I don't know. No, I can't just glue it on top, can I? I'm not exactly sure. Oh! Ha ha ha. I am the man. Let's see, did I glue you in? I did not. Oh ho 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 ho. Will you fit in here? You will not. Thankfully, I have a drill bit for that. So, I suppose I just accidentally made life very easy for myself because those came off like nothing. And I was smart and didn't try and glue in those bitty bobs. So I think what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to take a handy dandy little drill bit and put the fattest drill bit I've got in here. And I think, okay, it's still a bit too thin, but it's really close. So I'm just going to go ahead and use that. And we're going to see how well this works. I love this tool so much. If you don't know what this is, it's called a WoW stick. I first saw it on Midwinter Mini's channel. He had one. And I think it's one of the best devices that I've purchased, that I have acquired. It is a fantastic piece of equipment. It really, whoa, okay. It really makes it far less frustrating to, okay, the torque isn't working on this. That's fun. That must be because it's rock solid in there. There we go. Ah ha ha ha. I just didn't tighten it down. It really makes it easy to do a lot of this pin vise stuff. And hopefully, I'll be able to drill out a hole wide enough to fit that bit. If not, then I'm going to be in a wee bit of trouble. Get it? A bit of trouble? So we're going to go ahead and give this a couple more shots. See if I can grind out this wide enough to fit in the joining rod. If not, I'm going to have to do a hard and fast solution, which is essentially going to be chopping down the joining rod and making it so that it doesn't really need to fit in there. Oh, that's kind of impressive. This resin is still relatively uncured, I believe. And so it's not exactly dry. Like I can still feel it being wet on the piece. And yeah, that's not going to work. So I'm just going to chop it down. I am not going to fight this game. I am not going to play that game. I am just going to measure it out and chop it down to size, since it is going to be covered anyway, right? There is no need to fight that fight. So I am not going to. I am, however, going to see what I can do about drilling these out a little more. Firstly, by properly tightening this down. Hey, AK Former, how's it going? I'm doing some last-minute adjustments on a Nurgle Plague Knight, because as it turns out... Uh-oh, that's got stuck. As it turns out, I didn't realize that these pieces had that there. So when I put the Nurgle Knight together, they were already kind of in place. So I took those off of the chicken legs that I have, and I'm going to probably have to just trim it down because it doesn't look like it wants to fit properly. But I've had this waiting in the back burner, on the back burner for over a year, and I'm in between commission jobs right now, so I figured I'd go ahead and take a crack at these guys. This guy. I've got all sorts of cool Plaguey Chaos armor, and other than some other last little bitty bobs, I don't exactly have a whole lot left to do on them. So let's see. This should theoretically fit over. Is it really not going to? Nope, it fits perfectly. So that's going to go like that. This entire thing is 3D printed, which I think is amazingly cool. And let's see. Yeah, that's going to go about to okay. It's going to go about to where the paint job ended. So I'm going to have some fun putting this together while I wait for another commission to get here. We're going to choppy. Yeah. Choppy. Yeah. Perfect. Now, before I do all that, the last thing I want to do is I've already spray primed them, and I've already kind of hit them with a zenithal, so that way some more colors will show up. So I think what I'm going to do is do some dry brushing, because I'm eventually going to want this model to look really old and rusted and broken down, and to do that I'm going to have to do some dry brushing to make it look that way. So am I down with the sickness? A little bit. I personally am not sick. What's down with the sickness, what's going to be down with the sickness, is this Knight Castellan that I have had waiting to be built for over a year, because I've just been kind of letting it fall down the queue of things that I want to paint. So I have all these bits and bobs that are eventually going to get glued on, and they're going to look really neat on this horrible diseased Plague Knight, right? But I've got to actually paint the thing first, you know? So I am not a sick boy, but hopefully this really cool little machine is going to be really sick, right? What is that? Is that just glue? Did I just like glue harden that way? That's okay. So obviously I didn't catch the stream. How did Nady like their chess pieces? Let's see. I'm gonna go with a brassy brass, and I'm gonna go with a gunmetal, and I'm gonna mix these together, try and get a rusty schnasty dry brush. And actually, I get to play around a little bit. I get to use one of my bigger dry brushes that I don't get to use very often. But yeah, how did Nady like the chess pieces? Did they turn out okay? Were they good enough? Were they what you were hoping for? What Nady was hoping for? So quite busy, haven't bugged them too much about them. Fair enough. If it made them happy, that's all that matters. I included them as part of the Doigan Swift Community Day thing, because I was really proud of them, and I wanted to show them off. And Doigan Swift liked them enough that they were like, I'd play chess with those. So, yay me, I did good. I did a good. Now for the next good is to make this thing look rusty as hell. So I'm just going to be really sloppy all over the place. Yeah, they have the VOD up on YouTube right now. And I showed off a couple of my things that I worked on in like late January, early February. That's okay. You can submit it next month, because they're doing the monthly now, right? So, yeah, I was considering not doing it because I still have that whole thing of like, man, the things I do are people aren't going to be interested in seeing that. They're not going to want to care to see mini painting and yada yada yada. That's just, they're going to have to try and be enthusiastic about something. Then I realized, no, the stuff I do is cool, so I'm going to show off the cool stuff that I do. Gonna do a game jam, so I hope I can make something. I hope so too, because you do cool stuff, and you should be able to show off your cool stuff. So hopefully you're able to do that. I'm gonna need more paint. That just absorbed the paint. Get you just a little bit wet. Let's go ahead and mix that back in. There we go. I just want it to be a little bit more so. But yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna have anything super neat to show them next time. Maybe this Plague Knight, all things considered. But yeah, they were unsure about the size of the minis and whatnot, and they actually thought that because of the gloss coat that I put on the chest pieces, they thought they were candy, which I thought was kind of funny. So yeah, the gloss coat finish, good idea. Made them look good. They liked them. People thought they were cool. That's all that matters. Oh, that's where that piece went. Okay, so I am intentionally being like exceptionally sloppy here because A, most of this is going to be covered anyway, and B, I'm going to go over this with like the gnarliest wash that I have. I have this homemade wash that I got the recipe from Midwinter Minis, and just make this less likely to fall. And I didn't do it right, so it's got this really weird mix of acrylic ink and matte medium and dishwasher soap and glue and a whole bunch of other things, and it tends to go on really thick and really dirty whenever I use it on things. So I tend to only reserve it for really big models like this. But what it does is not only does it seal in the paint of the Mini, it also does a really great job of just dulling everything down. So even though I'm going real heavy right now and this looks like it's just going to be a shiny mess, what the wash is going to do is really make it all look old and rusted and beaten up and oily, and that's exactly what I want. I want this thing to look like it's been through, 10,000 years of war, and that by all realistic standards it should be falling apart, and instead it's still trudging on and taking names, you know what I mean? So it's also going to darken everything down a lot, so that's the other reason why I'm not super worried about what this color is. Even though it is a lot brighter than I naturally want, it should be a-okay for what I'm going to do. But yeah, hopefully this is going to look good. I gotta say, one of the best things that I did with this was put in these giant friggin' magnets. I know, right? Especially one that's blessed by Papa Nurgle. But yeah, I'm really happy that I learned to magnetize things because, I'm sorry, nothing is cooler than this. Check this out. Heck yeah, how neat is that? So, hopefully, and I've actually never printed a knight before. This was the first knight I ever printed. And hopefully it turns out okay. That's always the big concern, is like, is it going to look fine even though it's been 3D printed? And I think it'll be good. I think this thing will be really cool looking because I've printed some other things, not quite of this scale, except for like that big Stompa that I did. And it always ends up looking good. They're so big and they're so impressive that people aren't really going to notice all the little details. They're going to see this giant... Did you end up having to do any filing or sanding? No, actually, because it was all... I got really lucky with the build. They did a tremendous job making it. And so, by and large, I just slapped it together. And I guess my other excuse is that because it's a Nurgle machine, if it looks a little bit piecemeal, that'll be fine. Because, Nurgle, right? It doesn't matter too much if it looks complete because it's supposed to look like it's breaking down anyway. So, I don't think there were any parts on here that were so egregiously bad that I felt the need to file or sand them down. which was something I would have done with the Orc Stompa if it hadn't been, you know, of Orc invention. So it had kind of that same thing going on. There are some models that I really should do that stuff with, though. I printed this giant saber-toothed Titan for a tabletop game that probably is never going to happen. Unless I get lucky. Anatomically correct. No, I hate those. They're so disgusting. The thing that gets me about them, have I ever seen the anatomically correct Pixar's X-ray drawings? The answer is yes. They make me sad. Hands down, the single worst thing about them is the super long tongue that stretches all the way back to their stomachs. It's like, I do not like this. I do not like this. I do not like this. I mean, they are fantastic. Like, they're incredibly well drawn. Kudos to the creator who did that, but I don't want to meet them. Okay, let's see. And I guess the other good news, I'm going to use up a lot of... I really need to use up the rest of that wash. It's been sitting in a jar for, at this point, many years, and it smells absolutely awful. The wash jar smells like the Pixar drawings, or the anatomically correct Pixar drawings look. It's pretty foul. Look at that boy. The other thing, and I think I've talked about this before because it's excited me so much, is I don't have a proper knight head put on this machine. Yeah, like, look at this. Look at this piece. This piece, like, look at how good this piece turned out. Actually, I think those two bits aren't supposed to be there. Come here a second. I think these are just supports. Nope. Okay, whatever. But look how good this thing turned out. I think this turns it as one solid piece. And it looks absolutely phenomenal. So it's going to get a horrifyingly dirty bronze, like brassy bronze wash. To look kind of like rusted metal. But I forgot what I was saying. I lost track of it because I couldn't stop thinking about the horrifying Cars drawings. Thank you for that. Okay, let's mix that together. That all mixed in. Some of that off. But yeah, I need to clean out that wash jar because I knew it wasn't glass. It's not a glass mason jar. It's like a plastic mason jar, but the seal on it is really bad. And gosh, what else is about it? And it constantly tries to glue itself shut. So I've had to learn to baby it a little bit. And I like the wash. It's a good wash. It does a great job being gross, like what Nuln Oil and Agrax Earthshade are supposed to do, which is, I'm trying to do a game design doc, or at least start one for the game dev, so I'm kind of distracted as well. That's fair. I'm ranting for the sake of ranting, so if you're only listening to like 1 out of every 10 words I'm saying, that's fine. I just don't want there to be a whole lot of dead air, because I don't know. I've seen other painting channels, and I'm always impressed by the work they do, but one of the things that kind of gets me about them is that not a whole lot of talking happens. And I feel kind of bad, because it's like, I want to watch your channel and I want to see your stuff, but you're really quiet. And so once I kind of got over that initial hurdle of like, I don't want to talk on the camera, I'm too embarrassed, I kind of have just let it go, right? I think being a teacher and having to fill dead air or make sure that I'm articulate enough for the students has helped with that. But I don't like the dead air. And I think I need more quickly. I'm gonna go through all these metallics. That's hammered copper. That's not the one I want. And I have some other metal bits I gotta do this with, because I have some gun emplacements that need to go on this thing. Oh yeah, I remember what I was talking about. Sorry, the dry brush hit in my mouth. One of the last big things in this project that I'm super excited to do, but haven't gotten quite to yet, is, and I think I've talked about it before, but one of my friends, his fiancée, I mean, she's my friend too, but his fiancée is like a huge Scarlet Witch fan from like the Marvel comics and whatnot. And when Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness came out, she was, you know, the primary antagonist of that movie. And since she was a principal character, they released a whole bunch of, you know, promotional stuff with her on it. And one of the things at the theaters they released was like this bobblehead, super like chibi style figurine of each of the characters, right? And so they had one of Scarlet Witch, and she really wanted it. And so she asked the person at the stand, "Hey, do you have any more of the Scarlet Witch chibi bobblehead?" And he was like, "Yeah, we also have some busted ones if you want that." She was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll take, you know, the one with just the torso and the one with just the head." And she realized she didn't want the one with just the head. So she was like, "Hey, Benry Paints, would you like this?" And I looked at it and I went, "I can use you." So I went ahead and took it, and I've basically destroyed it at this point. It only half exists now. But I decided what I'm going to use it for is, instead of having like a traditional knight head on this Knight Stellan, is I'm going to take her head and I'm going to put it on there and have a whole bunch of like wires and whatnot hanging off of her, so it's just kind of sticking out from the front. And I mentioned a little while ago, my friend got an Angron mini, and it came with 2 jaws. So I took one of the jaws and I completely cut off most of the bits of it. And I think what I'm going to do is try and have it so that it's hanging awkwardly off of her mouth, and I'll have wires connecting like the cables into her skin, and it's just going to be as upsetting as I can potentially make it. And hopefully it'll sell. And hopefully anyone who sees it will be like, "Jesus, I don't like this." And then I can be happy. That's the plan, at least. We'll see how well that goes once I really start putting it together. But like, a big reason why I was struggling with this build and with... Oh my goodness, I have oversaturated this. Okay. With this build and whatnot, is that every time I think I'm going to make some progress, I've hit kind of a roadblock. And at first it was like I wasn't sure if I could print the armor, because the armor was just so big and complicated. And I didn't really want to have to deal with failed prints and figuring that out. And then when I finally got around to it, they all printed like a dream. So that ended up not being a problem. And then it was like, okay, now I've got this cool, creepy head that I'm going to use. And I couldn't figure out how to get it to fit, because if I put it on the pivot, her head was so high up that it didn't really work. So I've been kind of stumbling and then regaining and stumbling and regaining, and it's been a whole experience, but it's definitely not a bad one. If I had a YouTube channel where I was regularly updating it with videos on this, they'd be sorely disappointed, because, you know, it's not a huge ambitious mini, but it's taken me at this point close to 2 years to finish. So I'm not exactly moving at the speed of light with this thing. But that's okay, because now I have been bitten by the bug of inspiration. And hopefully it will not lead to a disease of Nurgle as I make this horrifying Nurgle Knight. Okay. Just trying to get some of this horrible off bronze on here. I want the metal to look decayed. I want it to look slightly rusted. I do everything I can to highlight this thing to look absolutely horrifying. Okay, I got these little baby meltas. And thankfully, the creators of this stuff was smart enough to not make anything look too close to Games Workshop. So this is going to clearly be a proxy. And something that I like that they did was they took the regular legs of a knight and they inverted them, because they only make for the Dominus class knights, they only make a what the heck is it called? An Imperium version. And they say, yeah, you can convert this to be a Chaos Knight if you want, but nothing about it looks particularly chaosy. I have a regular Knight Valiant, the one with the harpoon, and other than painting it a different color, there's not really much I can do to give him that kind of chaosy edge. So, But okay. Aha. These are going to look so good when they're done. Because of all of the white washing everything out, you kind of can't really see just how incredibly bronzed this looks. I did not realize that these were magnetized. This is exciting. I did not realize that I was supposed to put a magnet on this so that I could do that. That's really cool. I love this Mini. Okay, can I pick up any more metal? Because the podium is going to be clearly seen. So I'm going to want to hit this all over. Try and... Okay, well, I'm just going to need more. Maybe I can take a little more of this and brush it on a little better on the missile pods, because I was kind of down to my last strikes there, as you can tell. But we're gonna hit this a little bit more efficiently. There we go. You. Same thing with you. Oops. Just remember, guys, when you're mad at your minis, throw them as hard as you can. Don't actually throw your minis as hard as you can. Okay. But yeah, I was completely unawares that all of these were, like, actually built with the intention of being magnetized. This is very exciting for me, because I actually have a ton of magnets that I think will fit in this guy. So, if I really wanted to, I could just take these parts off and stow them away and make it even safer to transport the lab. I'm not going to fit in any of these things. Oh, no, it fits. Very cool. I wonder, will this fat brush fit in any of these things? Oh, yes. Now I can just let them drip dry. Okay. The next thing I need to work on. Probably... I don't know. I'm trying to think of what I should do next. All of the metallic parts are done. Or all of these parts are done, but I almost feel like what I should do is kind of get all of the armor. The whole magnet attachment is so simple and cool, yet I didn't realize it was a thing. I know, right? It was something that I found out a little while later going into the hobby, but it makes some parts of it so easy, right? Like with these guys. I mean, you can clearly see that there's a seam there, and it's like, wow, maybe I should just... Oh, he almost stabbed. Look at that. And you just put a magnet in, and there you go. It's good. It's fantastic. And it works really well. I kind of wish I had chosen different arms for this guy, because hanging at the right angles that they are, they're really close to the hips. But it's fine. It looks great. But yeah, I'm debating now. What do I want to do with him? Because a couple of things I can do here is, now that for the most part the armor is individually painted and everything else is going to kind of be full gimbal. I know, right? I'll be honest with you, I don't know what a gimbal is. I've heard that phrase used a lot, or that word used a lot. What is a gimbal? Ah, okay. I understand. I have looked this up and I see exactly what you're talking about. That would be heckin' neato. But, I think all that's left is for me to, like, individually paint these little bitty bobs. And to be completely honest, there's no reason why I can't just attach them to the Mini and paint them there. And it would probably make things a little easier. So, actually, no, you know what? What I can do, all of this trim is supposed to be metal. So I think for all of this trim, what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint it the same rusty, desiccated color. But to do that, I'm going to just need a paintbrush and some more of that metallic. Space shooters are fully gimbal term, means you can shoot in different directions. Yeah, well, to be honest, they are supposed to be like that. This one is 3D printed, so clearly these pieces don't move, but the elbow is completely articulated in the real things. And most of the pieces are like that. The elbow and the shoulder, I believe, are fully articulated. It's just that when you put it together, things get kind of snug, and since it's made out of, a plastic, I don't exactly want to tempt it. It's just this specific 3D print doesn't have that ability. So what I think I'm going to do, I'm going to take some some more. What I've been using is Vallejo Game Color, Brassy Brass, and Gunmetal, and I've just mixed them together on a palette, and that's kind of allowed me to just paint on, well in this case dry brush on, a lot of the color. So what I think I'm actually going to do, and this might speed up the process, is I'm going to use a dry brush, really cheap old dry brush. I'm going to mix this stuff together, and I'm just going to very sloppily paint on the borders, because this doesn't need to be pretty, it just needs to be done. So if I just kind of dry brush this stuff on, first of all, it's going to prevent me from getting too deep into the recesses. But secondly, especially given that this is a Nurgle themed knight, it doesn't have to look pretty. It just has to look, right? So if I keep it messy, it's actually going to contribute to the overall look of the model instead of detract. At least that's the hope, I suppose. And again, I'm going to have these really stark differences right now, but once I throw the wash on, it's going to kind of meld everything together and give it a much more unified look. And that's what's going to be the beauty of this thing. I will say the only thing that's missing from this, to be completely honest, is are the chains, because like all good chaos stuff has a shit ton of chains to just kind of show that it's evil and painful and bad, right? And obviously this doesn't have it because those are really flimsy to print, and to be honest, I didn't want to have to deal with it. But what I'm doing now, I think there's going to be enough. There are going to be enough bits and bobs on this guy. He's going to look fantastic regardless. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I think where I've heard gimbals referred to is in the Horus Heresy novels that I've been reading through. Speaking of, I'm working my way through the Siege of Terra. I mentioned a while ago, I don't remember, that I finally got to the Siege of Terra. And I'm reading Saturnine, which is widely considered to be the best Siege of Terra book, because Dan Abnett, the writer for that book, has just such a strong vision and such a strong writing style for 40K, and it has been the best book. All of the praise that Abnett gets on the regular is well deserved. He's a fantastic author, and he really brings a lot of like humanity to the characters in a way that some of the other authors struggle with. But he's really good, and he had by far one of my favorite scenes in all of the Heresy. They focused on Abaddon, who I suppose actually is named Abaddon. I've heard it pronounced Abaddon, which I thought was correct until, I've listened to Jonathan Keeble say his name a million times. But he's clearly upset with the direction of the siege, right? He doesn't like the fact that they're fighting alongside demons. He doesn't like the fact that Horus is becoming increasingly detached and paranoid, and he's clearly deteriorating mentally. And so he goes to Perturabo of the Iron Warriors, right? The Primarch of the Iron Warriors, to try and appeal to him to mount an attack on what he saw as a weakness in the fortifications of Terra, of the Imperial City, right? And he does so by trying to appeal to Perturabo's jealousy and pride, because he knows Perturabo sees this entire thing in the same way he does, that he's got to rely on these unreliable demons, and his brothers who have fallen to chaos have become complete Looney Tunes and they're worthless. And like, as he's talking to Perturabo and as he's trying to push his point, Perturabo keeps warning him, watch your tongue, you're going to speak out of line. And eventually he says something that comes across as snide, and it's a perceived Perturabo weakness. And I don't remember what it is, but Perturabo finally snaps in one of my favorite lines in the book, because it's been pretty high-minded with its rhetoric and dialogue and the characters speaking in certain ways, but Perturabo just loses his shit. And so he just kind of turns on Abaddon and says, "Why, you little bastard!" and then grabs him by the neck and lifts him up, full Terminator armor and everything. And swearing has not been a huge part of the Horus Heresy, which I kind of appreciate it because it makes the times when cursing is uttered matter more, you know? But just listening to this 10-foot tall demigod lose his mind really caught me off guard and made me laugh way too hard. Okay, and honestly, this dry brushing thing is working. I was originally going to be really fastidious and try and paint all this in, but exactly, right? The less you swear, the better the swears you use. It's like, and I hate to use this as an example because it's a weird one, but in pro wrestling, there's this weird movement right now where enough of the original wrestlers from like the 70s and 80s and whatnot, they're alive, and some of them are even still performing, but they really hate what modern American wrestling has become. Why, like Blue Ruin, it's not 100% action all the time. When it does happen, it is very impactful. Yes, those are the best types of movies and storytelling when it doesn't have an overabundance of the thing you're there to see, but when it does happen, it's incredibly meaningful. There's a lot of, built up context behind it, and everything matters just a little more, right? But yeah, with like the pro wrestling, which I used to be a huge fan of, and now I just kind of appreciate the performance aspect of it. Most modern wrestlers rely on what are called spots, right? And in the parlance, a spot is a big moment to try and get the crowd excited or to have the crowd go ooh and ah. And a lot of the old school wrestlers and a lot of the old school fans really deride that style of wrestling. They call it just having spot fests, where there's no build-up, there's no context to it. It's just big move after big move. It's kind of just like watching a trampoline act. And they don't feel like there's enough build-up in between it, and it makes each of the individual moves matter less, you know what I mean? And I can kind of see where they're coming from, but I feel like there's some willful ignorance going into that. And that they're just not understanding what the current landscape of wrestling is supposed to look like. And I know that's like a really weird angle to take that comment from, but you're right. It's the same thing with cursing. If every other line in the book is a cuss word, then a character getting angry and swearing means little because it's been the way everyone's communicated, right? There's no impact behind it. So the fact that Dan Abnett, again, even in his books where he deals with kind of the rougher edges of the more human populace, even he doesn't include a lot of swearing. There are characters who may swear a lot, but not everyone speaks that way. All of the Primarchs are very dignified and very careful with the words they use, right? And the way that they speak. The language that they use is very, very particular. Meanwhile, Rando Soldier number 5, who has been now fighting this war for several months, he's cursing like a sailor because he's become very uncouth through being in this war for so long. And he has this just really great characterization between the Primarchs and the different Space Marines and the different heroes, the different regular people. And I just think he does a phenomenal job of differentiating between those levels of the conflict and those levels of humanity. I remember reading a long time ago, well, not a long time ago, I've only been in this hobby for a few years, but I remember reading that when Dan Abnett first started writing for the Black Library some 20 years ago, he explicitly didn't want to write Space Marines because he felt like he didn't understand their psychology and how they behave and how they think and how they speak. And so he didn't really feel comfortable doing that and stuck with very human stories. And to some extent, there was all these rumors, and it's kind of been confirmed via news, that Henry Cavill is partnering with Games Workshop and Amazon to start thinking about doing a Warhammer series on Prime. And I was not aware of this until I listened to Arbiter Ian talk about it, but he mentioned that when something is in pre-production, like the Warhammer series is, that doesn't mean it's going to be guaranteed to happen. Generally, a company will announce something like what they did for Henry Cavill because they want to gauge interest, right? They want to see, is there enough social media buzz about Henry Cavill and a Warhammer themed television show on Amazon Prime. And if it doesn't get the kind of traction they hope, then it just kind of gets shelved and they never talk about it, right? But if there's enough of a social media presence of, yeah, that sounds like a great idea, we should do this, I mean, people are excited, then they'll move forward and a show will start going into production and yada, yada, yada. So my hope is that happens, that there's enough talk about people being excited for a Warhammer show. But at the same time, I'm not gonna hold my breath, right? And I guess the other part of that, the part that I was eventually going to get to, was that if they do have a 40K television show, that they don't do something Space Marines immediately. It's gonna lose a lot of its impact to immediately see Space Marines in the show, and it just feels like it would be so much better. And a lot of people online seem to share this opinion. If they start with something small like an Inquisitor, something more human, so that the show has a whole lot more levels of relatability with the general audience. And then once the general audience is kind of bought in, if they enjoy the show and they continue to watch and they want to learn more of the lore, that's when you start introducing some of the more fantastical aspects of it, like the Adeptus Astartes. But though I do suppose the other issue there is if you do something like an Inquisitor investigating chaos, then you run the risk of them thinking, oh, it's just another demon hunting show. Yeah, exactly. But you do want to start with human characters. You want to keep it relatable, right? That's a huge reason why in a lot of movies that tend to be fantasy or sci-fi, it's done through the eyes of someone who is new to that world, right? It gives the audience an anchoring point to kind of learn the world as this character learns the world. But what was I thinking? Yeah, I guess the other part though is that you worry that people are going to see it as just another like demon hunting horror show. But I feel like the aesthetic of 40K and the strong lore of 40K, would help pull it and pull it along. Yeah. Or someone who is otherwise just kind of a dumb fuck. Yeah, exactly. I think that's important. I think having that anchor character, as trite as it may be because of how overused it is as a trope, it's important for people who aren't initiated, right? We don't want to just make a show for Warhammer fans. We want to make a show to make Warhammer fans, right? Like, I've talked about it a few times. I really like the short Astartes. I think it's fantastic. But that's because it's one of those rare, just right pieces. There's just enough there that someone who doesn't understand 40K won't have a hard time understanding it. But there's enough there that someone who is into 40K will really appreciate it. And that's a really hard balance to reach. So that's not a platform I would try and reach with a show that is hopefully going to be on Prime. I got isekai into the... Oh no. I got isekai into the 40K verse and all these Primarchs are now in my harem. That would be a very interesting way to try and go about it. I think that would just make me sad. Oh, goodness gracious. I don't know. Has the Dungeons and Dragons movie come out yet? I honestly don't remember. To be completely honest, I haven't been very interested in seeing it, though I was pleasantly surprised by the trailers. There's a new D&D movie came out or something. I don't think it's come out yet because I haven't seen any talkings about it recently. But there were trailers for it. There was even a trailer for it. I'm not even on camera. I've got too much crap behind me. Oh no. I haven't seen much about it, but I do know that there was a trailer for it at the Super Bowl. And so it's actually getting some major traction. Yeah, the old one in the late 90s. that's generally seen as not very good. I think Jeremy Irons carried that movie with how much ridiculous fun he was having, but that one was considered like a flop. I know they've made and are advertising a newer one that is supposed to be released soon if it hasn't been released already. And it definitely feels like it's trying to be a whole lot more accurate to the established D&D lore about the monsters and the characters and whatnot. But at the same time, I don't know. I'm not interested in it. Seeing a bunch of iconic monsters doesn't make me want to see the movie. I don't know. Okay. I think I have not been paying attention at all to the feed, so I did not realize how incredibly out of focus things have been. Hopefully that hasn't been the case for too long. Okay, gonna hit the metal bits with the metal. Hit the metal bits with the metal. Find it kind of boring if I'm not playing. I don't care about the lore. Yeah, that's exactly it. I don't go out and read the Dragonlance novels, even though I've heard they're fantastic. I don't pay attention to the lore of the Forgotten Realms or the whatever. That's never been my cup of tea. That's never been something that's interested me. What got me into D&D and probably got you into D&D was the ability to tell your own stories and make up your own worlds, right? And I know that's not how everyone did. That's not everyone's thing about D&D. Some people really love the old lore and love the Forgotten Realms and whatnot. But I wasn't one of them. So the idea of a movie that takes place in the quote-unquote D&D world just doesn't do anything for me. Yeah, Discworld, I mean, I'm gonna out myself here. I've never read Discworld. I've never read any of Terry Pratchett's stuff, and I feel bad about that. And eventually I'll get around to it. But right now I'm knee deep in the Horus Heresy. So once I kind of finish that and get some other things done, then it's into Terry Pratchett's world for me. But yeah, it's just like, again, the fun of D&D for me is inventing my own world for my friends and my friends to play in, right? Doing a movie about D&D in the world of Faerun or wherever else you want to put it. It's like, okay, that's fine, I guess. I like Lord of the Rings, I like The Hobbit, okay. But I don't know. I hope that it does what it's supposed to do, and people who are into that kind of stuff or who are interested in getting into that kind of stuff get the itch scratched that they're looking for, right? That's kind of my thing, is if it brings more people into the hobby, then fantastic. Because, you know, no one has to be perfect with their knowledge when they first go into a hobby. I don't feel like there is a perfect. Everyone enters from one angle or another. And once they get deeper into the hobby, that's when they can start finding the thing about the hobby that they really like, right? I mean, that's kind of the thing with Warhammer. To go back to the things I'm painting, I got into Warhammer through If the Emperor Had a Text-to-Speech Device. And there are a lot of very strong opinions about that series from certain grognards. And they really hate it because they feel like it's because of the fact that it's a comedy show and that it's created all these dumb memes, that's all people do when they get into the hobby, is they want to meme based off of that show. And it's like, yeah, of course, that's what got them into the show. But guess what? If they enjoy their experiences while they're, you know, going through that phase of that being their only bit of knowledge, they're going to want to learn more, and then they're going to learn more. I mean, that's what I did. Like I said, I started with If the Emperor Had a Text-to-Speech Device, and then the actual lore became interesting to learn. So I started picking up books and reading about the actual lore and finding out what actually happened. And so I'm not still stuck in the phase of like, oh, the Custodes are all JoJo's Bizarre Adventure pillar men. While I still think that's funny and I'll still reference it, I very clearly know now that that's only a very small part of it. Yeah, I get it, because hobbies in general are places where people go to be happy, right? They go to feel secure and feel safe and feel comfortable. And then something threatens that to them because they have a different take on it, right? So I don't necessarily agree with it, and I find it frustrating, but I understand why they get so defensive over it. They're seeing someone come into something they enjoy and try and change it in a way that they don't like, or interpret it in a way that they don't like. And unfortunately, the type of people that are those weird gatekeepers just aren't emotionally mature enough, or don't have the words to really process what's going on, right? And it sucks. It's unfortunate, but that's something that hopefully they'll grow out of. And I know to some extent, yep, that was just glue. I know to some extent I've got a very lenient view on that because I teach a bunch of kids who are emotionally stunted. And so, you know, they're 14, 15-year-olds, and they've got enough developmental issues because of their home life and the like. So I can't treat them like miniature adults. I've got to understand that they're teenagers, and they're teenagers who aren't getting the emotionally healthy coping mechanisms that they should be getting. So I've got to be careful with how I talk to them and how I interact with them. I can't treat them like they have the same level of emotional maturity that I had when I was their age, because they don't. There we go. I gotta say, slapping on colors sloppily really helps bring out some of the stuff. Okay, on to the bone colors. Oh wow, you guys are just hearing all of that vibrating. I'm sorry, I'm using a mixer, and the mixer is right next to the microphone, so that's probably what that whirring was that you just heard. But yeah, I don't know. I don't want to say I've become a lot more sympathetic for people like that, but I feel like in a lot of ways I've become a lot less immediately hostile and disdainful, simply because I've reached that understanding of like, I know why you're doing this. And as annoying as it is, and as frustrating as it is, I understand, and while I disapprove of it, I'm not going to immediately write you off. Because how else are they supposed to grow as people if we just constantly treat them like they're awful too? Unless, of course, they're offering truly bad takes, like Austrian Painter at that one tournament that he played in. It's like, no, you know what you're doing. You're a bad faith actor. Get out of here. You're not to be tolerated. But that's a whole different story. I do appreciate that Games Workshop at least had the wherewithal to put out a statement that, you know, the world of 40K is bad, but the community of 40K is not supposed to be bad. Right? Which I think is a very good distinction to make. Like you said about the gatekeeper things, it feels really tone deaf and silly for a bunch of people collecting plastic miniatures to play their war games at, to have like an elitist view on whether or not fascism should be tolerated. Because it's like, no, you're not actually doing these things, you genius. You're playing a game where characters in the game doing it. You are literally playing pretend. And so you making outwardly hateful things be part of your identity in this game, real world things, is really not, it's really emotionally immature. But that's a whole nother story. I don't know. It's one of the things that has scared me most about playing with people in real life, other than the fact that they just know the game more than I do. So I'm just gonna be bad at it and misplay and, you know, struggle. But I really worry about just meeting people who are that kind of rhetoric and that kind of belief system. And I think it's a misplaced worry, because everyone that I've talked to and interacted with within the hobby at the local game store I go to, they've been nothing but wonderful. I mean, the game store owner himself specifically doesn't put up the Imperium's Aquila because too many people have already mistaken it for, you know, German or Nazi iconography. So he's like, yeah, we don't want to put that out there and make people think that it's a thing. So while we as hobbyists clearly know, no, that's not what this is supposed to represent, we don't want someone to walk in and immediately think that's what it is. Right? And I mean, it's just all about being considerate. It's just all about trying to understand that other people don't have the knowledge base you do, and are going to have their own reactions. I don't know. I know I'm rambling a little bit, but that's okay. What I'm actually doing is very clumsily dry brushing on the bone color to their teeth. And again, this is why one of the reasons I love me some Nurgle, because if I really wanted to, I could spend an incredible amount of time making sure that this thing is immaculately painted, and it would be impressive to watch and would probably be really fun to do. But I kind of just want to get this guy done. So if I can just go ahead and splotch on some ugliness, then more power to me, right? It's Nurgle. It's going to be rotting and disgusting anyway. So if there's some spillover, no one's going to care. But I mean, that's kind of the same with any model, right? I mean, if you want to complain about someone else's paint job, then don't do that on your paint job. You know? Man, your Imperial Fists are wearing the wrong color shoulder pads. If they're supposed to be third company, yeah, okay, cool. And when you paint your Imperial Fist, you can make them that color. I like my Imperial Fist looking like this. Which is why when I eventually make an entire Leagues of Votann army, they are going to have no arms. I don't know how I'm going to attach the guns to them, but they are just going to be among us. I'm going to do everything in my power to make this happen. It's something I could print off, because I found some Hearthkin proxies, so I could actually, if I wanted to, print out more Among Us. And that's just super appealing to me, because they were really easy to paint using the scheme that I put on them. Okay. And again, have some really, really good tiny things happening. This one does not have any. This one do. Now today is going to get to be a double whammy for me, because after I get off of here, one of my friends, if he can make it, if his schedule allows it, he is going to be coming over, and we are going to continue building his Angron, which really excites me, because Angron is a really cool model. And so I'm excited to see that thing get finished. His work schedule is such that he usually gets home in the evening at like 6 o'clock, and he's just way too exhausted to think about putting together some plastic mini. You know what I mean? So I feel for the guy, because it's the kind 40K is the kind of power fantasy that he really enjoys and appreciates. And so having something like the World Eaters, which is an army he's wanted to make for a couple of years, and having them release and owning their Primarch, which is something that normally would have been way out of his price range, is exciting. But he just can't muster the energy to be here. He's just way too tired. Poor guy. But that's okay. That's why it's all here, is so that whenever he does have the time and energy to come over and paint some cool minis, he's more than welcome. I think this is also going to be the month, especially since I'm going to feel like garbage because of the changing seasons, where I'm going to update and clean up and modify my Typhon, or not my Typhus, my Mortarion a little bit. Because I painted that model before I had a lot of the skills I do now, and so I'd like to take parts of him and really touch him up and make him look fantastic. Speaking of, oh boy, I forgot how many tooths you got on you. I gotta say, this sculpt is a masterpiece. I'm really impressed with how horrifyingly toothy and spiky they managed to make this thing. Okay. My God, that was so easy. Why have I not done this before? Just slap the hell out of it with a dry brush. It works. Unfortunately, this one is a big baby, and I think I did not put anywhere near enough paint. I did not put paint on this thing. I guess so. The internet has become a great, kind of a double-edged sword when it comes to hobby spaces, right? Because obviously, more people's opinions are going to be heard, but at the same time, there's more opportunities to meet a good, engaging community and to spread that, you know, just joyous acceptance of new people into a hobby than there would have been 20, 30 years ago. Because if you tried to get into certain hobbies 20, 30 years ago, you definitely had to deal with whoever was closest to you in terms of geography. And if they happened to be a bunch of shitbags, then you were kind of stuck with that, right? But nowadays, if you don't like the group that you would, you know, potentially have to hang out with, then you can meet other people. Okay, there we go. It's amazing how decent that looks, given how little effort I just put into that. I'm just stunned at how well this is working. I'm having a happy day because I was expecting to have to individually paint all this stuff and try and really make it look good, when in reality all I needed was a cheap dry brush and some really good paint. Yeah, definitely. The internet's definitely had its ups and downs for me too. I mean, like I think I've mentioned before, I used to really be into 4chan when I was in college and whatnot, and I'm really happy that I have so many good people in my life that have clearly shown me that that is not the way to go. And at the same time, I guess it's one of those things, though, as you get older, you start recognizing and curating your internet experience, right? And it just allows you to better surround yourself with people who are there and that can support you and make your life more fulfilling instead of less fulfilling. Oh my God, look at this ugly bony thorn he's gonna have on his shoulder. Bony thorn? No, it's a bone. It is literally just a bone. It's a bone spike. Teeth. And I guess unintentionally, because I'm just dry brushing the hell out of this, it's creating a nice gradient to fade back into the bronze anyway. I mean, I think the internet, in a lot of ways, has been phenomenal. If it wasn't for the internet, I wouldn't have met you guys, for one, and I would never be doing this hobby. At least not to this level. I would have probably tried it for a little while, gotten sick of the fact that I was so bad at it, and given up. But I've found a literal treasure trove of information, and a community that's been incredibly loving and supportive and uplifting. And all of those things have made my life considerably better. And I mean, you've met friends online, and you've had some wonderful experiences with them. I mean, you liked a person enough online to have chess pieces commissioned and painted for them. So clearly, that's a good. And with that, I'm done dry brushing. No, I'm not done dry brushing. I think the sensors, they're supposed to be kind of a bronze, but I've enjoyed painting them like a horrible, awful, sickly purple. So I think that's what's going to happen here. That's brown. Hey, Isidore, how's it going? I'm not dead. I have had a couple days of extreme fatigue, and it's definitely caused me to slow down, but I'm not dead. I know, right? That's been the best part about growing up and maturing, is realizing when you've been in bad places and being able to work your way out. I am painting a Chaos Knight that was custom 3D printed by me. And I printed all this neat Nurgly armor, Deathguardy, Nurgly, Foxrotty armor that I am using to make this knight look disgusting. And right now I'm being exceptionally lazy, working on a Scorpek Overlord tomorrow. Very cool. I used to have one of those. I really like the Scorpek models. They are terrifying. I hope you have fun painting it. I did mine in a sandstone Necron scheme that I saw on Midwinter Minis back when I was first getting into the hobby, and I was astounded at just how good it looked with how little effort was actually required. I hope your color scheme, what color scheme, right? Like someone I used to hang out with got a visit from the police and had all electronics seized for investigation thanks to some Facebook stuff he posted. I do not know what he was posting. Yeah, that is kind of the worst part about the internet, is you don't really know much about your friends until you learn too much about your friends. You know what I mean? So I'm glad that that you're no longer friends with them, hopefully, and that, like you said, you're away from those toxic communities, so definitely on the up and up. Okay. I think what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to add some pink. No, some flesh tone. That's what I'm going to add. I'm going to add some flesh tone into the purple I was just doing, and I'm going to model the some of the bits on this. I was trying non-metallic metal on the whole thing. No, can't say it looks like metal. Yeah, it's difficult. Non-metallic metal is very difficile. I still don't think I'm that good at it, but I think the best thing to do is to just realize that you're most likely too close to it, and so you're not going to see it as for how good it really is. You know what I mean? You're probably doing a better job than you think. Do you have pictures? Do you have pictures? Are you willing to share pictures? I'd love to see pictures. The more I think about it, the more I would like to see pictures. Yes, I very much want to see. I want to see all the I love seeing the cool stuff that you guys have to show. Please, reward me with pictures. I would love to see pictures. Right, front. Oh, you're so much closer than you think you are. Okay. You're doing better than you're giving yourself credit for. I am, like, zoomed out the way it is, I immediately recognized what you were doing. Yeah, no, this looks really, really good. Like, obvious, I mean, what I see here, especially on, like, the shoulders from the back, you've got that really great, like, mid-tone in between the bright reflection and the rest of the metal. Obviously, it's not perfect. I mean, who's heckin' non-metallic metal is if your name isn't, you know, Sergio Calvo or something. But I can clearly see what you're going with there. And I think you're just being hard on yourself. Is this your first attempt at an M&M non-metallic metal? Because, I mean, even if it's not your first attempt, it's still fantastic. Like, that looks really good. That looks a hell of a lot better. First attempt on a whole metal. Fair enough. No, I mean, I see the highlights. I see where they're going with it. Where you're going with it. I think that looks pretty darn good. I mean, I think what you did is you've got it blocked in really nicely. And so when you move on and when you get more confidence in what you're doing, you're going to be able to take what you've already done and clean it up real nicely without having to, you know, clean out the entire model. And I think that's important. You've got a really great foundation going on there. So once you feel more confident with your placements, you'll be able to smooth out those brush strokes like nothing and blend it in like nothing. But I think you've got the highlights there. They clearly read as what they're supposed to read as. You're just being too hard on yourself. And that's the thing, right? That's always the thing about non-metallic, especially for me, because I'm still learning it, is that because you know all the parts where you, like, cheated, and you know all the parts where you didn't quite get that highlight like you want it, you're too close to the model now. And so everything looks wrong. All you can see are your mistakes. And, but no, I saw it and immediately was like, oh, it's a metal. So your eyes aren't, actually, here's a way to put it. Here's a way to think about it. And you probably don't need this pep talk. You're probably already pretty aware of how good it looks. But here's the thing, and this has kind of changed how I've looked at painting. And I feel dumb that it took me so long to realize this. But my wife told me, being the art major that she is that painting in general is trying to lie to your eyes. You know what I mean? You're trying to tell your eyes that something is there when it's clearly not. And so with something like non-metallic metal, where you are actively lying to your eyes by saying, hey, look, you see these colors here? You see this flat surface that is made out of plastic? Well, no, it is actually metal. It's really hard to lie to your eyes when they're the ones, you know, actively changing it to be whatever, right? So I think that's the biggest trick with non-metallic metal, is your eyes can't be lied to. They know that it's not metal. And so they're going to be searching out all of the flaws that in your paint job that actively prove that it's not metal. And that's what they're going to fixate on. But anyone else is going to look at it and they're going, yeah, practice some self-hypnotism. Everything you make is metal. But someone else who doesn't have that insider knowledge that you have will look at it and they're going to clearly see, oh, or it's going to trick their eyes. They're going to be like, oh, I can see where the highlights are. I can see where the reflections are, even though, you know, it's not there. So like I said, it's clearly not perfect. You clearly have some stuff to improve on, but I'm not going to be the one to tell you what that is, because I don't know non-metallic metal well enough to do that. I think it looks pretty good. At least given with my own experiences with non-metallic metal, I think it looks really darn good, and you should keep it up and keep trying. And just remember, it's really hard to trick your own eyes when they're in on the secret. That being said, sorry, I got kind of sidetracked mixing up some more of this fleshy flesh paint that I'm using as a highlight. That's kind of what I'm doing right now. I'm going through all of the fleshy bits on here, like the pulsing veins and skin folds, and I'm hitting them with what I'm hoping will read as kind of like a pinky fleshy tone that looks a little bit diseased. And that will all, again, be knocked down once I hit it with a wash. But right now, is this another commission? No, this is me wanting a giant, ugly ass Chaos Knight. I'm waiting for a commission to arrive. I have the individual, the client who had me doing the armatures. They want me to do some more big models, which I think is pretty neat. But I had the ability and materials to print out a Chaos Knight, and I just wanted to do it to say I could. And I realized that what I think it was actually is this is my wife's fault, and I will gladly blame her for this, for her to yell at me about it later. But she got me a Knight Dominus, the one with the harpoon, for Christmas a couple years ago, because she saw me oogling it and she wanted to get me a really nice Christmas gift. And that set me off on this desire of, I want more knights. So I 3D printed some armatures, the smallest ones, to go alongside my Dominus. And then I realized my Imperial Fists are getting way too much firepower. I had about 7,000 points of Imperial Fists before I kind of cut down my army. But my Death Guard on the other side, who are kind of, in my case, the things that can fight the Fist, I only had like 3,000 points. So I was like, I gotta do something to give them more firepower. I'm gonna give them some knights. And so I printed off this big guy first, and I ended up buying the Chaos Knight box when it came out last year sometime, and they're all going to be Nurgle themed. So now I'm going to have a Nurgle Knight box and an Imperial Fist Knights. Yeah, 3D printers are cool. Actually, because I found out I'm getting more money in my tax return than I thought I was, there's a very, very high chance that I'm going... Why am I using the good paint? Let me use the shitty paint on this. There's a good chance that I'm going to be getting an Elegoo Saturn S2. Oh, the M3 Premium. Oh, you are getting the big mamma jamma. Yeah, I have an Anycubic Mono SE, and it's been a pretty darn good printer. Especially for a 2K, but it's just too small. I have bigger things I'd love to print. Mainly vehicles. And obviously bigger beasts. And so what I'm looking at getting is the Elegoo Saturn II, I think it is. It's got a 10-inch screen. It's got this newfangled like light display system. It's got a built-in filter. It's got a bunch of things that I think are going to really elevate my ability to do things with it. The 8K screen is going to be obviously very nice. And hopefully it'll do all the things I want it to do. That's my big goal. Hopefully, you know, knock on wood, nothing financially important happens between now and the Saturns, but the build plate turn you off. What have you heard about the build plate? I haven't heard anything too bad about them, but I haven't done a whole lot. Is it because of how finicky it is to level properly? Because that is something that Anycubic does really well. They've got incredibly user-friendly. Oh yeah, the ball connect. That's fair. I will say, with my limited experience with Anycubic, their build plate has been phenomenally easy to level. So I suppose we'll see. The biggest problem I've had with Anycubic is that their customer service is friggin' atrocious. I think whoever they have on customer service is not a native English speaker, and so everything they say comes across as terse and impatient. You know, like, and it always made me feel like they were secretly calling me an idiot through their email because of how the language sound. But I think it really is just a language barrier issue, and the way that they track things always feels a little bit funky. When I first got my Mono SE, it was supposed to come with the wash and cure station and with 2 liters of resin, right? And I got shipping information from them, and what ended up happening was I got the wash and cure station and the resin first, but they only gave me one tracking number, so I had no clue where the Anycubic or where the printer was. And so I emailed them, being like, "Hey, I got these things, but I don't have the printer, and the email says everything's been delivered. What's going on?" And the tracking number does. And they sent me something back that was just like, "Our tracking number says it's still in New Jersey. Please be patient." It's like, oh. Well, you didn't have to be a dick about it. But yeah, it came like 3 days later, and everything was fine. So it was not a huge issue. It was just more along the lines of, there's got to be a language barrier going on. That being said, 2 things. One, oh, there they are. I was about to say, I don't know where my ball joints went. I've got these itty bitty ball joints. I had to cut them off so I can put them in the shin guards. It's time to go. I need to go eat dinner. So, thank you guys for joining me. I do appreciate it. Hope you guys had fun just kind of listening to me ramble incoherently. I'm very excited to almost be done with this thing. This has been sitting on my table unfinished for like 1.5 to 2 years. And so I'm really excited to have this thing really done. That being said, thanks for joining me. Hope you guys had a good time. You're very welcome for the stream. Thanks for being here. I will talk to you guys later. I'm not going to be streaming tomorrow or Friday. I might stream Saturday morning. I might stream Monday again. I don't know. But yeah, have a good rest of your day, guys. Have a good rest of your evenings. Yeah, and thank you again. Later. Bye-bye.